Have you ever felt like your mind is overloaded, trapped in a loop of anxiety, overreaction, and thoughts that drain your energy? Maybe the problem isn't what's around you, but what's inside you. What if I told you there's a powerful ancient code that can reset your mind without needing to run off to a mountain, delete Instagram, or become a monk? In this video, you'll discover 8 brutal Stoic principles that work like a real operating system for your mind. These are practical ideas, tested over 2,000 years ago by names like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, that will teach you how to control anger, stay calm under pressure, stop overreacting, and even turn pain into mental strength. This isn't shallow self-help, it's deeply effective life philosophy. What you'll learn here isn't for sounding smart in debates, it's for applying to real life. You'll understand why silence can be more powerful than 1,000 arguments, how perception shapes your reality, and how remembering death can teach you to truly live. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but real transformation begins in discomfort. So if you're seeking inner peace, mental strength, mind mastery, and want to break out of autopilot for good, this video is for you. Stick with me until the end, because each principle connects with the next, forming a code that could flip your life upside down. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and share this video with someone who needs a mental reset. Today, your mind is about to experience a Stoic reboot. Everything begins before the first step. The Stoic understands that the mind doesn't react to the world as it is, but as it interprets it. If you see an attack where there's silence, rejection, where there's just a pause, or chaos where there's only change, then your mind is creating invisible enemies. Stoic philosophy teaches us to look with clarity, less ego, and more discernment. The secret to emotional control lies in the lens you choose to wear when you wake up. Imagine someone stuck in traffic. They can either rage, yell, slam the steering wheel, or take a deep breath and listen to a good podcast on Stoicism or personal development. The difference isn't in the situation, but in perception. Marcus Aurelius talked about this constantly. Things don't touch us. What affects us is the judgment we place upon them. And here lies the real power of the mind, the power of perception. A person who masters perception begins to control their anger without even having to fight it. That's because underneath every feeling there's a story being told. This is unfair, this is an attack, this shouldn't be happening to me. Ancient wisdom breaks that narrative and asks a new question: is this serving me now? The simple act of observing before reacting is, in itself, an act of mental strength. Want a simple example? Before replying to a sharp message, pause, read it again. Ask, did this person really mean to attack me? Or am I projecting my own stress onto them? That tiny space between stimulus and response is where true mind mastery begins. That's when you stop overreacting and start acting with self-discipline and emotional intelligence. And even if it sounds hard, it's a skill you can train. Resilience training starts small, by choosing what you consume, who you engage with, and what thoughts you repeat. Epictetus said, "It's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them." If you change your thinking, you change your experience. And when you change how you live, the world begins to look very different. Mastering perception is like putting on a new pair of glasses over a tired mind. You begin to see the same scenarios with more inner peace, less impulsiveness, and deeper wisdom. When you perceive with clarity, you move with intention. And when your actions come from calm, not chaos, you step into the next level of Stoic living, letting go of the things you can't control. One of the main causes of suffering is trying to control what's not under your command. Stoicism shows us that anxiety is rooted in the desire for everything to go your way, on your timeline, under your control. But the world doesn't revolve around your plans, and that's okay. Seneca said that true freedom begins when we accept the limits of our influence. And this is a critical step in resetting your mind. Stoic philosophy splits reality into 2 parts, what depends on you and what doesn't. And here's the key: everything outside your thoughts, decisions, or direct actions, you must release. The weather, traffic, other people's opinions, the past and the future, none of these are in your hands. Trying to control them is like trying to hold the wind. The more you try, the more exhausted you become, and the more peace you lose. Marcus Aurelius often wrote in his meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This is one of the most powerful quotes in Stoic life philosophy, and also one of the hardest to live by. But when someone understands they can choose their emotional response, even in the face of injustice or chaos, they discover real control, internal control. Here's a simple exercise. Grab a piece of paper and write down everything that's been stressing you out. Now split it into 2 columns. I can control and I can't control. Then make decisions only from the first column. That's self-discipline. That's emotional control. That's freedom. This small practice reveals how often we're trapped by our ego and by expectations that don't even belong to us. If you want to know how to stay calm under pressure, start by accepting that the world will let you down. People will disappoint you. Plans will fall apart. And none of that needs to steal your peace. When you release the need to control, you make room to live in the present with more lightness. You stop fighting reality and start flowing with it. And it's in this flow that true mental strength is born. The desire for control is a silent thief of energy. When you eliminate it, you're not becoming passive, you're becoming wise. It's like letting go of a rope that's been burning your hands. You don't lose anything when you let go. You free yourself. And this inner freedom prepares your mind for the next principle, where even difficulties begin to carry a new meaning. There's a brutal difference between someone who collapses in front of a problem and someone who grows from it. Stoicism calls this the fire that transforms. And this is a life philosophy that teaches you how to view obstacles as raw material for your evolution. Marcus Aurelius said, "What stands in the way becomes the way." The problem is not the problem, it's the training. That's where your mental strength is forged. The Stoic doesn't avoid discomfort, they approach it with intention. They know growth doesn't come from comfort zones. A heart that's never faced frustration is a fragile heart. When life throws you into the fire, that's where you learn how to control anger, how to stay calm amid chaos, and how not to be shaken when everything around you falls apart. The Stoic looks at chaos and says, "This is where I grow." Take a common example. Someone loses their job. Most people see crisis, despair, pain. The Stoic sees opportunity, time to reevaluate habits, strengthen self-discipline, train resilience. Maybe it's the chance to start an old project, study something new, or cut out what no longer serves. This kind of mind doesn't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" but rather, "How can this make me stronger?" And this transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's like a muscle being trained. The more you face challenges with awareness, the stronger you become. That's the secret of self-improvement, using every setback as fuel. The Stoic doesn't deny pain, he molds it into wisdom. With every loss, he finds mind mastery. With every hit, he builds inner peace. Want to apply this right now? Look at the biggest discomfort you're facing today. Instead of asking how to escape it, ask what it's trying to teach you. Do you need to learn to say no? To be more patient? To care less about what others think? These kinds of questions flip the internal game. They turn pain into growth and anger into emotional control. When you decide to use obstacles as training, you begin to move at another frequency. It's like life stops crushing you and starts sculpting you, and it's this mindset that prepares the ground for the next step. Because if the obstacle shapes you, then the thoughts you feed daily are the material of your mind. And now comes the moment to clean up what's inside. The mind doesn't collapse from tragedy alone. It loses itself little by little in the quiet distractions no one notices. A negative thought repeated 1,000 times becomes a belief. A rushed judgment becomes intolerance. Stoic philosophy teaches that mastering the mind begins with learning to filter what you think, the same way someone chooses what they eat. Because thoughts are nourishment or poison. Seneca once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In other words, if you constantly feed your mind with noise, gossip, comparison, guilt, or fear, don't expect to find peace. The Stoic filters. They notice when the invisible trash is piling up. Social media, dramatic news, toxic people, these are all sources of emotional distraction that weaken your focus, your energy, and your emotional control. Here's a simple but powerful exercise. Do a mental fast for 24 hours. Avoid content that agitates you or provokes anger. Don't complain. Don't judge. Write down how many times your mind tries to go back to the old patterns. That's when you'll realize how conditioned you are. This practice shows you how essential mental discipline is if you want to stay calm under pressure and stop overreacting. Disciplining your thoughts is like organizing an internal library. You choose which books to reread, which memories to reinforce, which lessons deserve shelf space, and you ignore everything that just clutters the mind. Mastering the mind happens slowly, in consistent silence. That's where self-improvement begins. That's where you start to build mental strength, even when no one is watching. Epictetus taught that we should practice Stoic thinking daily, as if we're sharpening a sword. Each morning, ask yourself, what can I control today? What emotion do I want to strengthen? What thought do I need to release? This isn't about rigidity, it's about freedom. You're not obligated to believe everything your mind says. You can observe, question, and redirect. That's practical wisdom applied to real life. When you master this internal filter, your mind breathes. You become less reactive, more strategic, less a slave to emotion, more the master of what you think. And in this quiet, clean space, pain begins to feel different. Or rather, it starts to serve a new purpose. Because the next principle reveals how to face suffering without being destroyed by it. Most people collapse the moment pain knocks on their door. But the Stoic, he sits with it. Not because he enjoys it, but because he knows pain is a harsh teacher and one of the most loyal. Seneca said, "No man becomes great by chance." Pain, when properly understood, reveals strength that was asleep. That's why Stoicism invites us to face pain without the theatrics of despair. Have you noticed how some people suffer twice? First from the situation, then from the story they build around it. They dramatize. They turn wounds into identity. The Stoic removes this noise. He accepts pain but rejects victimhood. He understands that suffering is inevitable, but unnecessary suffering is a choice. That's one of the greatest acts of emotional control. Facing pain directly is like holding hot iron with steady hands. It's not about denying the discomfort, it's about meeting it with discipline. When you realize that pain isn't punishment, but part of the human experience, something shifts inside. You stop fighting it and begin to learn from it. And when you learn from pain, you develop mental strength. That's real growth. Here's a practical shift. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" That small change turns suffering into wisdom. It's how you stop overreacting and start mastering your mind. Pain becomes a lab for inner peace. You walk out stronger than you walked in. It's like a spiritual gym where the weights are invisible. Marcus Aurelius, even while sick at war and surrounded by betrayal, wrote, "Pain is a perception of the mind." That phrase isn't about ignoring the body. It's about refusing to let pain dictate your inner story. Ego likes to cling to pain for identity. The Stoic lets go. He suffers, yes, but suffers with purpose. He turns tears into lessons, not into cages. And once you understand this, something unlocks. You realize it's possible to walk through chaos without losing your essence. That pain, when faced with dignity, strengthens more than it breaks. And as your mind grows quieter and your reactions soften, you begin to see the power of silence. And that's exactly where the next principle leads. The Stoic knows that the most dangerous noise comes from within. Repetitive thoughts, careless words, opinions tossed out too fast. All of these drain your energy. That's why silence is more than just the absence of sound. It's a conscious choice. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself in silence while ruling an empire, because silence allows you to hear what truly matters, your own conscience. And a sharp conscience is the birthplace of ancient wisdom. You know when someone provokes you during a conversation, the immediate reaction is to snap back. But Stoicism teaches silence is mind mastery. Speak less, listen more. And when you listen more, you perceive beyond the words. You notice the other person's ego, your own, and what actually deserves a response, or doesn't. Epictetus said we should be quieter with others and more observant with ourselves. and that applies directly to daily life. Have you ever tried spending an entire day without justifying yourself? No explanations, no rebuttals, just observing. This kind of verbal fast reveals how much energy we waste trying to convince or please. Strategic silence filters the essential. Everything else turns to dust. Silence also protects. In times of constant exposure, those who know how to stay quiet hold invisible power. Don't announce your plans. Don't react to every jab. Don't give your opinion on everything. That's self-discipline in its purest form. It's how you develop mental strength that doesn't shout, but is deeply felt. Inner peace doesn't mix with constant chatter. Often, the wisest response is no response. If you live in toxic environments, silence can be a shield. You don't have to clash with everything. Sometimes staying silent is a strategy, not cowardice. Those who master silence also master how to deal with insults, without being dragged into mediocrity. And that doesn't mean accepting everything, but choosing the right moment to act. And acting with presence, not impulse. When silence becomes habit, your mind breathes, the ego quiets down, your focus sharpens. And in that space of clarity, you begin to value what truly deserves your time. Because in the end, if you're not the guardian of your silence, how will you be the guardian of your time? Time is your most valuable asset and the one most often wasted. Stoic philosophy treats time as sacred. Seneca wrote an entire letter just to say, life is long if you know how to use it. But what do most people do? They give away hours of their day to pointless distractions, empty conversations, and obligations that don't serve their purpose. And at the end, what's left? Frustration. The Stoic doesn't allow that waste. They know that every minute poorly spent is a direct attack on inner peace. That's why they organize their routine with intention. It's not about becoming a productivity robot. It's about making conscious choices. Choosing who to spend time with, what to study, what to consume. That's emotional control in action. Cutting the excess, prioritizing what matters. A simple no can save years of your life. Here's a practical example. Take a look at your weekly calendar. Spot the things you do just out of obligation, to please others, or out of fear of seeming rude. Now remove what drains your energy and doesn't move you closer to the life you want. That's Stoic self-discipline. Because if you don't control your schedule, the world will, and usually with interests very different from yours. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations that lost time never returns. And here's the twist. He wrote that while ruling Rome. If even an emperor worried about wasting time, who are we to live on autopilot? Time well spent builds self-improvement, strengthens mental resilience, and gives you the powerful feeling of direction. And direction is what pulls you out of stagnation. Managing time is also managing stress. When you know what you're doing and why you're doing it, anxiety fades. That feeling of running in circles disappears. You feel more purpose and less exhaustion. That's resilience training, knowing when to stop and when to act, without guilt, without haste, without self-sabotage. And once this awareness kicks in, something deep shifts. You start saying yes only to what makes sense, and no to everything pulling you off track. That transforms your mind. It transforms your life. And once you realize time is limited, you begin to take the finiteness of existence seriously, because there's a daily, brutal, and liberating reminder that closes this cycle with power. It may sound dark, but remembering death every day is actually an act of freedom. Stoic philosophy calls this memento mori, a reminder that time is finite and life is fragile. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." It's not about living in fear, it's about living with clarity, because those who remember death live life differently. Most people live as if they had infinite time. They delay important conversations, postpone dreams, suppress what they feel, and live for appearances. But the Stoic doesn't fall for that illusion. He knows that each day could be the last, so he loves with more presence, forgives quicker, acts with more clarity. That's mind mastery. Using the awareness of death as fuel for meaningful decisions. Seneca said we shouldn't fear death, but fear the idea of not having lived with courage, and that flips the script. While the ego clings to the illusion of eternal safety, the wise seek purpose. Those who wake up remembering they might not see tomorrow don't waste time with drama, gossip, guilt, or comparison. They invest their energy in what matters: their mission, their truth, their inner peace. Here's a simple exercise. Write down what you would do if you had only 30 days left to live. Then compare that to how you're living today. What needs to change? Who needs your forgiveness? What dream needs to come off the shelf? This reflection is soul cleaning. It helps you stop overreacting to the little things and start acting with greatness. That's life philosophy with real depth. The awareness of death strips the ego of its weight. You stop wanting to win every argument, please everyone, or chase constant validation. You start practicing the self-discipline of living light with what truly makes sense. Remembering death is, ironically, what most connects you to life, because every breath becomes a gift, and you begin to feel gratitude just for being here. And when this perception settles in, everything aligns. Your focus shifts, your attitude shifts. The way you love, work, forgive, even how you rest, shifts. It's the last principle, but the deepest. Because resetting the mind is really about this: living like it's the first time, and at the same time, like it's the last. And now that you've seen all 8 principles, it's time to see how it all connects from the very beginning. You made it this far, and now you know. Resetting your mind isn't magic, it's a practice. You've learned that true power lies in seeing before reacting, letting go of what you can't control, turning pain into strength, filtering your thoughts, silencing your ego, guarding your time, and facing death as a reminder to live. So now I ask you, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you keep reacting the same way? Or will you start applying this Stoic code today? Maybe the world around you won't change anytime soon, but you can, because your mind is the real battlefield. And those who master the mind, master life. So tell me, which principle hit you the hardest? Drop it in the comments. I want to know what resonated with you most. You have 2 options: forget all of this tomorrow, or begin to live with more emotional intelligence, control, peace, and clarity starting now. And if you want to keep learning, growing, and transforming your life with practical wisdom, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, leave a like, and share this video with someone who needs this too. Because knowledge alone doesn't transform you. What transforms is putting it into practice.